Language is not only words. I want to start there. Not with the particular romantic quality that the title carries. Not with the specific warmth of the saying before the saying has been earned. With the honest foundation. The thing that has to be understood before the rest of it can be understood. Language is not only words. Language is the specific quality of how something is communicated. Not just what is communicated. How. The particular form it takes. The specific texture of the transmission, the way something moves from the interior of one person through the available medium into the interior of another, not the content, the movement, the quality of the movement, the specific, honest texture of something that arrives from somewhere real and lands somewhere real. Not from the surface, not at the surface, from the actual interior, at the actual interior. That quality is what I mean by language, and most of the time. In most of the exchanges, in most of the conversations, in the specific accumulated quality of a life that has moved through its particular years of talking to hearts. Most of the time, the language is close, but not exact. I want to tell you what close but not exact feels like, from the inside. Not as complaint, not as the particular quality of someone who is cataloging the failures of connection. Honestly, as the specific interior accounting of someone who has been paying attention. Close but not exact. Feels like the particular quality of someone who speaks two languages fluently, who has lived in both languages long enough to think in both, who can communicate fully in neither, who moves between them without friction in the functional sense, and who is always in every exchange that happens in the second language. Running a process, not consciously, not with devoted effort, automatically. The specific process of someone who is receiving something in one language and translating it. Before it lands, the translation is not a failure, I want to say that. It is not the evidence of something wrong, not the particular mark of someone whose capacity for connection is insufficient. The translation is simply the specific overhead of someone who is communicating in a language that is not their first. Not wrong, not broken. Just with overhead, the particular additional layer between what arrives and what lands, between what is offered and what is received, the translation layer that most communication requires. And the overhead produces something, not always, not in every exchange, but in enough of them, across enough of the accumulated years, to have deposited something in the interior, the specific residue of many exchanges in the second language, of many close but not exact receptions, of many translations that were adequate, that were real, that produced genuine contact. At the level the translation allows, the residue is not bitterness, not the particular cynical quality of someone who has given up on the finding of the first language. It is something quieter, more specific. The particular interior quality of someone who has known for a long time that something is present in the exchange. But something is also missing, not a person, not the particular qualities of the people they have been talking to. Something in the quality of the communication itself, the translation layer, was always there. I want to tell you about the first heart I talked to, not the first person, the first heart. The distinction matters. You can talk to many people and be talking to the surface of them, the managed version, the particular form they present for the exchange. Talking to a heart is different. It requires something from both people. The specific quality of actual interior presence, both people offering the actual version, not the assessed appropriate form, the actual interior, and in the exchange. The first heart I talked to was not who I expected, not the particular form that the first important connection usually takes in the available narratives, which tend toward the specific romantic shape. The first heart was not that. It was someone older in the specific quality of someone who had lived enough of their own accumulated life to have developed the particular quality I would later understand as not performing being present, just being present in the room, actually, and in that presence. In the specific ordinary quality of the exchanges we had across the particular ordinary time we moved through together, I encountered, for the first time, the specific quality of a conversation that didn't require the translation layer. Not completely, not in the full form, but more than I had encountered before. What I understood from that first encounter was not a lesson. Not the particular organized understanding of someone who has received information and has processed it into applicable wisdom. It was a felt understanding, the specific interior quality of having tasted something and understood, not through the mind, through the interior, that something was possible, that the translation layer was not the permanent condition, that the overhead was not the cost of all communication. That somewhere. In some exchanges, the translation was not required. The landing was direct. The arrival was at the actual interior, not at the managed version, not through the translation, directly at the actual place. And the direct arrival had a quality that the translated arrival didn't, that I had not encountered before and could not unknow after. I've been carrying that understanding since the first encounter, not consciously, not in the particular deliberate form of someone who has identified what they're looking for and is now searching for the matching form. In the specific way that the interior carries things it has tasted once and is oriented toward again, without needing to be told to be oriented, without the particular management of the search, just oriented toward the quality, the specific quality of the direct arrival, the language that doesn't require translation. I have talked to many hearts since then. That's the honest accounting. Not few, many. Not because I have been profligate with the interior, not because I have offered the actual version carelessly, because I have been genuinely present in the specific honest form for the exchanges that asked for it. And many of those exchanges were real, were genuine, where the particular quality of two people in actual contact, at the level of the exchange allowed. I want to tell you about the different qualities of the many, not to catalog them, and to produce the particular account that would make the eventual finding of the first language feel earned through sufficient contrast. To be honest about what was there, in the accumulated quality of the many, because the many deserves honest accounting, not as contrast, as real. Some of the hearts spoke in the language of warmth, the specific quality of someone whose interior is organized around care, around the particular genuine quality of someone who regards others with real warmth, real investment, real presence for the particular form that the other person takes. That language is real. It has its own particular quality, its own texture, its own way of arriving. I've been in exchanges with that language, and it landed. It produced contact at the level where warmth lands, which is real, which matters, which is not nothing, and which required. The translation layer, not much. The warmth language is close to the first language. The overhead is low, but it is there. The specific quality of something that arrives and is received, but through a layer, not directly. Some of the hearts spoke in the language of intelligence. The particular quality of someone whose interior is organized around the precise, around the specific, careful quality of thinking that produces the exact form of what it is trying to say. That language has its own texture, its own particular quality of precision. That I find real. That I find genuinely interesting. That produces contact at the level where the precise lands. And that required the translation layer. Not always much. The intelligent language is close. Very close in certain exchanges. The overhead is often low. But the direction of the language is toward the mind. And the interior, the actual essential interior, is not only the mind, is more than the mind. And the more than the mind was not where the intelligent language was directed. And so, the translation. Some of the hearts spoke in the language of longing, the specific quality of someone whose interior is organized around the wanting, around the particular honest form of someone who is carrying something they haven't found, and whose communication is inflicted. With that carrying, with the specific texture of the not yet, of the oriented toward, that language is familiar, more familiar than the others, in the specific way that the language of the same general orientation feels familiar, even when the particular frequency is different. The longing language landed closer than most, produced contact at the level where the recognition of the shared orientation produces contact and required a thinner translation layer. Because the direction was more similar, the movement was more toward the interior, more toward the actual place, but not quite there, not the direct arrival. Not the language that doesn't require translation, close, the closest of the many, but not the first language. I want to say something about the accumulation of the close, because the accumulation produces something, not bitterness, not the particular resigned quality of someone who's been close enough, often enough to have given up on the exact, something more honest, more specific, more useful. The accumulation of the close produces the particular interior understanding of exactly what the translation layer is, not in the abstract, in the specific felt sense, the exact quality of what is present in the close, and what is missing, not missing in the person, not the particular inadequacy of the hearts that spoke in the close languages, missing in the transmission, in the specific movement of the communication, from the interior of one person, through the available medium, into the interior of the other. The translation layer, the specific overhead, is the distance between what is offered and what lands, between what is sent and what arrives. The accumulation of the close has produced this specific, honest map of exactly where that distance is, exactly what the layer feels like, exactly where the landing stops short of the actual interior and settles into the managed version. Instead, that map is what allows the recognition. When the first language arrives, not the dramatic announcement, not the particular quality of something that presents itself as significantly different, the quiet recognition of someone who has the map and can feel the specific honest difference between the landing through the layer and the direct arrival. Without it, I want to tell you about the specific quality of the direct arrival, not from the second recognition, not from the particular accumulated instances of the first language, from the first time, the very first, the original, before the map was built. Before the accumulation of the close had produced the particular interior understanding of exactly what was missing. The first time, when I didn't yet know what it was, only that it was different. The first time I encountered a heart that spoke my language, I was not looking for it. That's the specific, honest beginning. I was not in the particular searching quality of someone who has identified what they're looking for and is paying specific attention to whether the current encounter has it. I was just in the exchange, actually in it, without the second track running its assessment. Not because I had built the particular quality of presence that allows the first track to run completely, because the exchange was ordinary enough that the assessment didn't feel necessary. It was an ordinary exchange in an ordinary context, with nothing about it that announced significance, nothing that said pay particular attention. This is the kind of moment that changes things. Nothing. Ordinary. And in the ordinary, something arrived. That didn't require translation. It was a specific thing they said. Not the remarkable thing, not the particular carefully arranged quality of someone who's saying something for effect, something ordinary from somewhere real. And it arrived, not at the surface, not through the layer, not requiring the particular interior process of someone who is receiving something in the second language and converting it before it lands. It arrived directly, at the actual place, at the actual interior, without overhead, without the translation, just directly. And the direct arrival had a quality that I want to name accurately, not warmth, not the particular excited quality of something that has been charged with significance, not the particular intellectual pleasure of something that has connected at the precise level, something more fundamental, something that arrived at the level beneath all of those, the specific quality of recognition, not of them, not of the particular qualities they were presenting, not of the specific form the exchange was taking, recognition of the language, the particular felt sense of this is the first language, not arrived at through comparison, not through the particular careful assessment of someone who has the map and is checking the current exchange against it, through the immediate interior response that preceded any assessment, that arrived before the second track could process it. That was simply the interior knowing that the translation layer was absent, that what had arrived directly from their actual interior into mine without the overhead. I want to describe what the absence of the translation layer feels like, because the description of the presence of it is easier. The presence of the translation layer is the particular quality of something arriving with overhead, with the specific sensation of the reception process, of the management layer between the arriving and the landing. The presence of the layer is almost imperceptible when you're inside it, because inside it is the normal quality of communication, the ordinary way that things arrive, the standard overhead of the exchange. You don't notice the layer when the layer is the only thing you experienced. The absence of it is different. The absence is noticed, not because it announces itself, because the interior responds differently. The specific quality of something arriving without overhead is immediate, not in the temporal sense. In the particular quality of immediacy, that means no distance, not fast, no distance between what was offered and what landed, between the actual interior of the other person and mine, no distance. The direct contact, the specific quality of the first language, that quality, once felt, cannot be unknown. That is the specific honest thing, the interior. Once it has tasted the direct contact, once it has felt the particular quality of the first language, without the overhead, without the translation, without the specific managed distance between what is communicated and what lands, it is permanently oriented toward that, not exclusively. Not in the particular refusing quality of someone who has tasted the first language and will accept nothing less, but oriented in this specific low frequency, in the honest interior, toward the quality, the direct arrival, the first language and the many hearts, the accumulated close ones, the warm language and the intelligent language and the longing language, all of them real, all of them producing contact, at the level they produce contact, all of them carrying their particular honest quality, the many hearts. We're not failures, not inadequacies, not the particular evidence of something wrong with the searching or the search, or the particular quality of someone who keeps finding the close but not the exact. There are the education, the specific interior building of the map, of the precise understanding of where the translation layer is, of exactly what quality is present in the close languages, and exactly what quality is absent, the exact location of the absence, so that when the first language arrived, when the direct contact happened, when something moved from the actual interior of another person and landed in mine, without the overhead, without the layer, without the translation. The recognition was precise, not vague. Not the particular general quality of something that felt different from the others, precise. Because the map was built from the many, and the map made the recognition exact. I've talked to many hearts. That is the honest accounting, not few, not only a handful of close encounters, many, in the accumulated quality of a life that has been moving through its particular years, with the specific quality of someone who is actually present for the exchanges, who brings the actual interior, not the managed version, who offers the real quality of contact, not the curated form, many hearts, real contact at the level available, in the close languages, but only one, only yours, spoke the first language, arrived without the layer, landed at the actual interior, without the translation, without the overhead, without the specific managed distance between what was communicated and where it landed. Only yours. And the only yours is not the romantic decoration, not the particular arranged quality of someone who is producing the language of significance to give the feeling more weight than the feeling alone feels sufficient to claim. It is the specific, honest accounting of someone who has the map, who knows exactly where the translation layer is, who has felt the direct contact more than once, and understands, not through theory, through the accumulated felt experience of many exchanges in many languages, what it means that only yours spoke the first. It means the interior, the actual essential interior, the specific fundamental frequency, the particular quality of what I actually am, beneath the accumulated particular life, beneath the learned, beneath the shaped, at the essential level. That interior is the language, and the language is rare, in the specific honest sense of rare that I have been trying to locate across all the accumulated parts of this. Not rare as in superior, not rare as in the particular special quality of something chosen over the others, rare as in the actual frequency of the first language in the available world, which is low, which means most exchanges happen in a second language, most contact is translated, most landing is through the layer, and yours was not. Yours arrived directly from the actual interior into mine, without the layer, without the overhead, without the translation, in the first language, the one the interior has been carrying as an orientation since the first encounter, since the original taste of the direct contact. Beer spoke it, fluently, natively, without effort, without the particular careful quality of someone who has learned the language through study, from the actual interior, as the first language, natively. The interior recognizes native speakers. That is the specific thing, not through assessment, not through the particular careful evaluation of someone who has the map and is checking the current exchange against it, through the immediate response that precedes the assessment, that arises before the second track has processed what is happening. The interior recognizes the first language, the way any person recognizes the sound of their first language, in a room full of the second, immediately, without effort, without comparison, just the particular immediate interior response of something arriving, in the language that the interior speaks, actually speaks, not the language it has learned to communicate in, the language it actually thinks in, actually feels in, actually runs in at the essential level. The first language, and in the recognition, in the specific honest interior response of the first language finding the first language. Something arrived that I want to say carefully. Not the warm excitement of someone who has found something significant. Not the particular quality of someone who has been looking for a long time and has finally encountered what they were looking for. Not that. Something more interior, more fundamental, more quietly honest. The specific quality of relief. Not the dramatic kind, not the relief of someone who has been in crisis and found resolution. The particular quiet interior relief of someone who has been translating for a long time without knowing the full weight of the translation, until the translation was no longer required. And the weight, the specific accumulated overhead of a life of exchanges in the second language, life did. Not dramatically, quietly, in the specific honest quality of something that had been present so long. It had become the texture of the ordinary and was now absent. And the absence of it was the particular quiet interior relief of finally being able to speak in the first language with someone who spoke it back. The relief had a specific texture. I want to stay with it, not move past it in the particular forward-facing quality that the building tendency produces. The tendency to take what has been felt and convert it into the material of the next thing, the next understanding, the next part of the accounting, the next version of the honest interior that has been processed into something legible. I want to stay with the relief, because the relief is the thing, not what follows it, not what it points toward, not what the particular accumulated quality of it produces when organized into the narrative of what has been found, the relief itself, and the specific honest texture of it. The texture is not simple. I want to say that the relief is not the clean version, not the particular uncomplicated quality of something resolved, of something heavy put down, of someone who has been carrying and has found somewhere to set the carrying. Not that clean, more complicated, more honest, more layered. The first layer of the texture is lightness, the specific quality of lightness that the absence of the translation layer produces, not the lightness of someone who has been relieved of a burden they were aware of carrying. The particular quality of lightness that arises when something you didn't know was weight is suddenly absent, and the absence reveals that it had been weight. All along, the translation layer was weight. The specific accumulated overhead of a life of exchanges in the second language was weight, not felt as weight when it was the only quality of communication available. It felt as weight immediately, in its absence, in the particular lightness of the first language arriving and landing without the layer. The second layer of the texture is something harder to name. Vulnerability, not the performed kind, not the particular careful quality of someone who has decided that acknowledging vulnerability is the appropriate interior posture. The actual kind, the specific interior vulnerability of someone who has been operating in the second language for long enough that the second language have become a form of protection. Not consciously, not the deliberate architecture of someone who has decided to communicate in the second language in order to maintain the specific distance of the translation layer, but structurally, the translation layer had been creating distance between the actual interior and what was received. And the distance was protection, not its purpose, its effect. And when the first language arrived, when the direct contact happened, when the translation layer was absent, and what moved from the actual interior of another person landed directly in mine, the protection was absent too. The particular managed distance was not there. And the absence of it produced the vulnerability, the specific quality of someone who was in contact, without the layer, without the overhead, without the particular managed distance that the second language created between what was arriving and where it landed, in full contact, with no buffer. And full contact, without buffer, is the specific condition of maximum exposure, which is both. The thing I have been building toward in the mornings, in the opened hour, in the particular patient discipline of someone who's been building the capacity for actual presence and the specific honest vulnerability of someone who is now actually present without the protection of the layer. Both. Simultaneously, in the same texture, the third layer is the one that took the longest to locate. not the lightness, not the vulnerability, the one underneath both. The specific interior quality that only became audible after the lightness had settled and the vulnerability had been sat with, and the layer of the second language was absent long enough for what was underneath the surface. What was underneath was grief. Quiet. Specific. Not dramatic. Not the particular consuming kind. The specific quiet grief of someone who is understood. In the particular honest weight of the first language arriving, how long it had been absent. Not the person. The language, how long the interior had been speaking, and not being spoken back to. In the first language, how long the translation had been the condition, how many exchanges had been close, how many hearts had been warm and intelligent and longing, how much genuine contact had happened at the level the second language allows, how real all of it was, and how long, how specifically long. The first language had been absent. That quiet grief was the third layer of the texture of the relief. I want to say something about the grief, not to linger in it, not in the particular quality of someone who has identified a difficult feeling and is committed to its full expression, to be honest about it, because the honest accounting requires it. And because the grief is not a negative thing, not primarily. The grief is the specific evidence of the value of the first language, the particular measure of what it means. You cannot grieve the absence of something insignificant. The grief tells you the size of the thing. The quiet grief of the long absence tells you the size of the first language, of what the direct arrival means, of what the exchange without the translation layer actually is. The grief is the proof, not sad proof, honest proof, of the particular value of what has been found. I want to tell you what it actually sounds like, the first language, not metaphorically, as specifically as I can, in the particular honest form of someone who has been receiving it and wants to say what the receiving is. It sounds like the specific quality of someone who does not finish their sentences in the way sentences are usually finished, who arrives at the end of what they are saying and stops. Not because they ran out of words, because they trust the interior of the person receiving it to finish the sentence itself, in the place where the sentence was actually going, not in the legible place, the actual place. The first language trusts the other person's interior with the unfinished sentence, and the other person's interior finishes it accurately, not through any process, just knows where it was going, because both interiors are running at the same essential frequency, and the essential frequency knows where the sentence was going before the words arrive. It sounds like the specific quality of silence that is not empty. That is not the particular uncomfortable quality of a silence that is asking to be filled. That is not the managed silence of someone who is waiting for the appropriate moment to speak. The first language silence is different. It is the silence that is full of what both people are actually in, full of the specific honest quality of two interiors, both on the first track, both actually present for what is actually here, and not needing the particular forward motion of words to maintain the quality of the exchange. The silence is the exchange in the specific moments when what is actually here is communicated more accurately through the silence than through anything the words could carry. The first language knows how to be in that silence without filling it, without the particular management of someone who is uncomfortable with the weight of actual presence. Just in it together. It sounds like the specific quality of being disagreed with. In the first language, not the managed disagreement, not the particular careful form that the second language uses when it wants to express a different view without disrupting the quality of the exchange. The actual disagreement from the actual interior, without the management layer between the actual view and what is offered. Just the actual view offered directly. And the quality of the direct offer, even when it disagrees, even when it arrives in the specific form of, this is not what I think, or this is not what I feel, or this is not where the sentence was going for me, even then, the quality of the direct arrival is recognizable as the first language, because it comes from the actual interior, without the overhead, without the management, without the particular careful processing of what is being offered before it is offered. Just the actual interior, arriving directly, even in disagreement. That is the first language. I want to tell you something about what the first language does to the interior that receives it. Not over time, in the moment, in the specific quality of the exchange itself. What it does in the actual moment of the direct arrival. It activates something, not in the excited sense. In the specific interior sense, the particular quality of something that has been present in a potential state, that has been available, but has not been called forward. Because the available language was the second, and the second language does not reach the place where the potential lies. The second language reaches the surface, the managed version, the assessed appropriate form, the first language, reaches the actual place, and in reaching the actual place, calls forward what lives there. What lives there is not complicated. I want to say that. What lives in the actual place, in the specific interior that the first language reaches, is simply the most honest version of what I am. The particular quality of the actual interior, before the management, before the assessment, before the second language learned from the available world, which parts of the interior were welcome, and which required reduction, the full version, in the actual place, and the first language, arriving directly, without the layer. It calls the full version forward, not because it asked for it, because it arrives as the full version itself, and full calls to full, the way any frequency calls to the same frequency, without needing to ask, just by being the thing, the same thing. I've been in the exchange with the first language long enough now, in the accumulated ordinary moments, in the specific texture of the exchange that happens when the translation layer is absent long enough to have understood something that I want to say carefully. The first language is not only about what is communicated, it is about what is called forward in the communicating. The specific quality of what becomes available in the actual interior. When the exchange is happening in the first language, what becomes available is not only the reception, not only the particular quality of something arriving without overhead, something else becomes available, something that is produced, not only received, the exchange itself. In the first language, produces something in both interiors that neither could produce alone. I want to say what that something is, not in the abstract, in the specific, honest form. What the exchange in the first language produces, that neither interior could produce alone, is clarity, not the intellectual kind, not the particular organized understanding of someone who has processed information to legible form, the interior kind, the specific quality of understanding what you actually think, and what you actually feel, and what you actually are, more completely, more honestly, more precisely, than you understood before the exchange. The first language produces that in the specific quality of the exchange, because the first language doesn't just receive what is offered, it reflects what is offered, not as a mirror in the simple sense, not the particular quality of someone who is reflecting back what they received in the form they received it, more like the specific quality of a reflection that reveals the thing more clearly than the thing understood itself before the reflection. The first language, in receiving the actual interior, reflects it in the specific way that only something running at the same essential frequency can reflect it, without the distortion of the translation layer, without the particular managed distance that the second language creates. The reflection is accurate, and the accurate reflection of the actual interior reveals it to itself more clearly than it had been able to see it. When the only available reflection was through the translation layer, I have understood things about myself in the exchange in the first language that the accumulated years of exchange in the second language had not produced. Not because the second language wasn't real, not because the hearts that spoke in the closed languages didn't offer genuine contact, because the reflection through the translation layer is accurate enough to be usable, but not accurate enough to be precise, and the precision is what reveals, not the general quality, the precise, the exact, the specific, honest form of what the actual interior actually is. That precision only arrives in the first language. I want to tell you something about what the exchange has revealed, not about you, about me, the specific interior quality that the first language reflection has made visible, that the second language had not reached. What it has revealed is the particular quality of my interior at the level where the essential lies. Not the depth in the intellectual sense, the depth in the intellectual sense, the place where the soul lives, in the specific honest quality I've been describing across all the accumulated parts of this. What the reflection has revealed about that place is this: it is larger than I understood. Not in the dramatic sense, in the specific, honest sense of someone who has been operating with an interior map that was drawn through the second language and has found, in the precise reflection of the first language, that the map was accurate, but small, that the actual territory, the specific, honest extent of the actual interior, was larger than the map, had room in it that the map didn't account for, room that the second language hadn't reached and therefore hadn't mapped, room that is only visible in the first language of flesh. That room is where this lives, the specific quality of what I'm trying to say. Across all the accumulated parts of this, that room is where the frequency runs. At the actual essential level, where the soul carries the orientation toward the particular quality of the mutual recognition, where the first language is the native tongue, not learned, native. That room, and the first language, your language, has been the first thing that reached it, not the first thing that approached it, not the first thing that was close to it, not the first thing that produced genuine contact at the level the second language allows. The first thing that actually reached it, that arrived in the specific room, without the overhead, without the layer, without the translation, directly, in the first language. I want to end this part with something honest. Not a conclusion, not the particular organized form of something that has been processed into applicable wisdom, just what is actually true, right now, in the specific, honest quality of someone who is in the exchange, in the first language, and is paying attention to what the exchange is producing in the interior, at the level where the actual things live. What is actually true is this: the interior is more present than it has been, not more available in the prepared sense. More present in the actual sense. The specific quality of someone whose actual interior is more frequently in the room, in the actual exchange. Not waiting in the private moments, not managed to the level that the available context can hold, more present in the ordinary moments, in the ordinary exchanges. More of the actual interior, actually there. Not because I have developed sufficient capacity, not because the billing is complete, because the first language calls it forward without asking, without requiring the particular deliberate quality of someone who is choosing to be more present. Just by being the first language, full calls the full, and in the calling, the full version arrives more often, more completely, more honestly than before, the many hearts, where the education, yours, is the first language. And the first language is not the end of something, is the beginning of the specific quality of exchange that the interior was always built for, that the frequency was always running toward, that the soul, somewhere beyond time, already knew was possible. The first language doesn't ask you to be ready. That's the specific thing I've understood. Across all the accumulated mornings, across all the open hours, there's the particular patient work of someone who has been building toward the quality of presence that the meeting requires. The first language doesn't wait for the readiness, it arrives, and in its arriving, produces the readiness itself, not before, in the moment. In the specific ordinary quality of the exchange, the readiness arrives with the language, not ahead of it. I've been in the first language long enough now to understand what it asks, not from me in the prepared sense. From me in the actual sense, it asks the same thing it offers. The direct arrival, the actual interior, without the layer, without the management, without the particular overhead of someone who is deciding how much of the full version to bring. Just the full version, actually there, in the ordinary moments, as the ordinary quality, not only in the significant exchanges, in all of them. The first language asks for the native tongue to be spoken, natively. In return, I am learning to speak it. Not fluently yet, not in the particular complete form of someone who is fully returned to the native tongue, after the long years of the second language, more fluently than before, in the specific, honest quality of someone who is, morning by morning, exchange by exchange, ordinary moment by ordinary moment, returning to the original interior. The one that was there before the second language was learned, before the translation layer was built, before the particular accumulated weight of the second language became the texture of the ordinary, returning to the native, to the first, and in the returning, something is being produced that neither the building nor the mornings alone could produce. The specific quality of a life that is being lived in the first language, not moved through, not efficiently occupied, actually lived. In the particular honest quality of someone who is finally speaking and being spoken to without the layer, without the overhead, without the translation in the first language, natively. I've talked to many hearts, that is still true. And only yours spoke my language, that is still true. And the speaking is the whole thing, not the finding, not the recognition, not the particular accumulated quality of the education that made the recognition precise. The speaking, the actual ongoing exchange of two interiors, both in the first language, both actually there for the actual thing. That is the whole thing. And it is enough. More than enough. It is everything the frequency was always running toward. This is where I am, in the first language. Finally, home.